Hello, Saumya. Hi.
Hi,
Good afternoon. How are you?
good afternoon. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Okay. I think we are good to start the.
Okay, let's do it.
So every designing student is curious as to how he or she should make use of these 4 years of designing education at Avantika to make it an enriching experience and take full advantage to profit from it. So, to answer these questions and tell us more about how we can level up our designeering journey, we have with us here Miss Saumya. Hello, ma'am. It's a pleasure to have you here at Avantika University's Iconic session.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on Zoom. I wish I could be there in person.
Sure. Okay, let me quickly introduce you to our students. Saumya Aymuas is the founding member and creative head of Oyo X Design, a multidisciplinary design firm at Oyo. Deeply rooted in sustainability and storytelling, the studio functions on the principles of repurpose and reuse. It actively rethinks build choices when conceptualizing and executing design projects. Prior to OyoX Design, she established the Aymuas project TAP, a studio with a focus on experimental and sustainable designs. I welcome you once again, ma'am.
Thank
Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to kickstart this session with a few visuals because that's what best designers do. And also because this is post lunch on a weekend. So I'm hoping everybody is a bit alive. So I'm just going to request everyone to take a look at these visuals with a little bit of, take a few seconds to take a look at it and sort of absorb it, because these are in nutshell the life lessons I have and my team have learned over a period of time. Yeah. So I'm going to do a screen share here and try and do that. And let's see. Can you see my screen? Can you guys see the screen?
No, no.
Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the first one. Every time you get a design brief, what does the client expect and what is the client's budget? A lot of you will face this in after 4 years, and then probably during your internships or at various phases in your life as a designer. You will most probably work in a business or for a business. And this is for an emailer because those are the ones that get most amount of changes. But when a designer is asked to make changes, and it just keeps going in a loop, in a loop, in a loop. When you take inputs from business at the start of a project, and that's you as a designer by the end of the project. And especially for graphic designers, that's pretty much your life in a nutshell.
I totally agree.
So, okay, moving forward. I am going to not really share my design journey with you guys because it's pretty public and it's out there and you can always know how my journey went along. But what I'm going to sort of discuss in this first 5-7 minutes about myself is how I actually made my transition into design. I was a closet designer. I have actually been self-taught as a designer. So I was a closet designer. I did not realize very early on, like all of you who are now very aware, that design is a very valid choice. and you can choose to be a designer at a very young age, at 15, 16, maybe you probably decide and you study for it, and then you sit for your entrances and you sort of make it to the top universities such as these, and then transition to being a designer. At that point in time, about 14, 15, 16 years ago almost, this wasn't actually such a clear choice. So I was a closet designer from a very young age. I started with media communication, advertising. And how my design journey sort of happened is that I learned design along the way, and I learned it from artisans, craftsmen, skilled labor from on the ground. Uh, and it took me quite some time to sort of learn the nuances of design, how it actually focuses, what is the practicality of it, what is in theory, and how do you actually apply it on ground. And simultaneously with my journey, I was sort of working as a media professional. And eventually there were opportunities that started coming along my way where somebody started with saying, why don't you design a bunch of hostels with me? Hostels were all the craze, and initially started in India at around, I think about 2012, 2013 is when hostels came into India. And Mustache Hostels, one of the pioneers or the leading one, and I happened to design that at that point in time. And from there on, I just kept designing while actually working a full-time job, because I kept learning and designing and kept learning and designing. And no matter what, design is actually one of those fields where you cannot stop learning. So couple of years, it took me a lot of years to actually get there, to feel very confident and say that yes, I can do projects on my own, I can handle things on my own, I can build things on my own, I can create, I can also handle the business side of things. And then that's when I started my own little studio, which did a lot of material exploration, because I really enjoy material and I enjoy sustainability and repurposing personally. And I started that journey. And while I was on that journey, I sort of did a couple of projects with Oyo, and they were at that point of time wanting to start their own design studio, because they wanted to focus the business, wanted to have an angle of design. And yeah, the rest is history. It's been over 3 years. The studio has been thriving. It's a multidisciplinary studio. And that's, in a nutshell, is how design happened to me, or I happened to design. And yeah, there's been no looking back since then. It's, I think, one of my all-time love. It'll always be, design will be my first love, as I say.
Thank you so much, Saumya. You've had an amazing journey where we are learning in a design school. You have always been learning yourself. Okay, if let's move on to the next segment. So, ma'am, we have curated some questions to ask you. So I will jump right into it.
Yep.
First question, why do you think design is a form of storytelling?
So I'll give you an example of why I think design is a form of storytelling. We at OYOX Design, our primary work is to do spatial design, right? We started with doing spatial design. It started with a team of 6 members at that point in time. It was a small team. Today, the team has about 16, 17 members. So when we started, we were designing a space. When you design a space, you want to tell the story of the person or the place or something about, or the house itself or the space itself. You want to tell the story of that. And we did that via case studies. We did that via studying the environment. We did that via integrating locally sourced things into the space. So for example, if you're in Goa, and Goa has a certain, feel and vibe and colors that you talk about. It has there are certain materials. There's a lot of good terracotta work that happens, the pottery work that happens, and you can integrate all of that into the space and tell the story from there. But the story was sort of very limited in scope, because when a person will walk into that house or that that building or that hotel, will that person know the story? So we had to widen and understand how can we tell this as a bigger story. So that's how also the team expanded, and we did not just have spatial designers. Then we started having photographers, graphic designers, other kinds of designers, product designers, furniture designers, sort of came together to tell a larger story of the space. So then we started thinking, oh, there's a pre-planning stage to design. How do you tell the story there? Who are you designing for? Why are you doing it? What will be the best part about this design? Then the actual design happens, and then there is reaction of people who are experiencing the design. Every phase has a story to tell, not just about that space or that place, but also how it happened, what's so special about it, how are people experiencing it. So, a series of mini stories can make it into a larger story, and then you share it across, of course, various social media platforms. You share it across internally in your company or your organization, share it externally with consumers, offline. So that's why I think the design is one of the greatest form of storytelling, and there is a lot of scope to tell various little stories to make one big story.
I totally agree on you, and I guess that's one of the reason Oyo is so successful. So moving on to the next question, certain things and what things would you consider should one student consider and omit in their design journey?
What should you consider? Okay, I happen to, I'm going to share my screen again because I put a little pointers together so that I thought I won't miss anything for you guys to benefit. So let's see, what should you? Okay, everybody can see the screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things that you designers should take into consideration in your journey as a designer is me, myself, and I. You have to train yourself and your mind as a designer for your 20 years, 20, 30 years, whatever, how many years you will be designers in your lifetime. You have to train your mind on a couple of things. First, you cannot be married to your idea. So the first idea that comes to you as a designer is definitely not the best idea. Secondly, if don't be stuck on that idea, adapt, learn to change it, take feedback, think by yourself, like sleep over it, like give it 2 3 days and sleep and think of loopholes in your idea, right? So never be married to your idea, adapt at all points in time, listen to what people around you have to say, who may be design or non-design, about your idea when you're developing. And last is be professional about it. Criticism is something that comes a little bit difficult to us as designers because we are very attached with our work. We feel very strongly about what we design and what we make, and that is how it should be. That's what makes us so good. But you have to be at some point in time professional and learn how to take the criticism. So you have to train yourself starting from your year one on these things so that you're a better professional or a better designer. Second thing is art versus design. As designers, we tend to make things and then we expect everybody to fall in love with our idea or our design. It's but natural because you feel so strongly about it. But the only place that happens is actually in the art world, because art is something that is sort of made without keeping an audience in mind, unless it's commissioned art. But design mostly never is. It's either for a business solution or a public consumption solution or for something. Design is always leads to a solution. So it's not the same thing. Always remember that. It's a major mistake that all of us make. Always ask for a brief, starting from first year students to when you get into the professional world. Never work without a brief. Always ask for a brief. It's very important. If you don't have a brief, you are going to keep working and working, and you will never lead to the right design or the right solution, because you won't know what you're solving for, right? So always ask for a brief. Observe everything and everyone. When you're at the airport, observe people. When you're at a restaurant, observe people. When you're at home, observe family members. When you're out in a park, observe. Observation is extremely important for designers. It's what makes them really good, especially when you see usage of things around you, functionality. So observe, practice the art of presentation, extremely important. Again, you can go into an organization. I think from starting from second year, I believe you guys get into internships. So you can get into an organization and you can have really great ideas. But if you don't know how to present them, your idea will never succeed. It will never see the light of day. So always remember that just doing it is not enough. You need to communicate it well to the people around you, right? uh, Take detours. Again, something really interesting. I did a lot of detours, so it worked for me. So I recommend this very highly. Is that do non-design things. Don't always focus on design things, right? Like there are there in your second year or first year is when you can actually play around with it, because by the time you're in your fourth year, you need to be a little more focused on where you want to go. So in your first and second year, it's important that maybe explore non-design internships in a design firm, but ask for, say, a business related profile or a social media related profile or something else. Your design mind will still apply and work because that's who you are at your core. But it'll be very important and a good experience for you to have non-design, because then you'll be a fuller professional by the time you get out. Hang out with non-designers. Don't just hang out with designers. Too many cooks spoil the broth, as they say. So hang out with family, friends, have conversations with strangers, the auto wala, or have conversations, listen. Don't just hang out with designers. Hang out with people who are non-design. A lot to learn there as designers. Build your social media well. Build your networks really well. Design networks. Find out which are the top design networks across the world, in India, domestically, where you can be a part of it. Register yourself. Look at social media, what is trending. Look at websites that you follow religiously, 4 or 5 websites every day. Wake up in the morning, 1 hour, just cruise through them, see what's happening around the world in design. And of course, always try and apply for awards. Don't apply because you think you need to win or whatever. There's a very beautiful learning process when it comes to it. So that's more important than actually winning. So apply for awards as early as your first or second year. See what you can, you find online. There are so many of them now across the world. It's very easy to apply for them. There are lots of them that are free for entry. You don't have to pay. So do that. And last and final advice is, nothing is for free. Value your talent and your time. Do not work for your relatives for free. Do not work for your friends for free. Do not work for anyone for free. Even if you're charging 1 rupee to do that work, do that, because your time is extremely important. Your talent is important. So value yourself and do not work for free, right? Okay. Now with so much that I have.
Saumya, can we make an exception to that rule?
Yeah, tell me, what's the exception?
Yeah. The exception are that if you're part of students committee or any of the committees, then please work for free.
Yeah, oh yeah, college is, I think we can take college out of that.
Thank you, ma'am. These points definitely will help us. And personally, if I have to speak for myself, I mean, every Avantika student can relate to this, that the amount of redos that we get on our assignments can just sum up, okay, no, this idea is not going to work. We have to jump on.
Yeah, I mean, this
So
is the
moving
time for you guys to learn. So redos are good.
Yeah, so moving on to the next question, what are the things that a student should focus on more during the 4 years of design education to make it a meaningful journey and experience?
I think take your pick from what I have just spoken right now, because those are the things actually to focus on. especially, like I said, try taking a detour, right? Try and do something which is slightly non-design in the beginning of your journey, and keep the latter half and focus on then design. It's extremely important to not isolate yourself as a designer, right? This is a mistake that we all designers make. We isolate ourselves. We sort of work in our own silo as a designer, and we forget that as a designer, you are working for a business, or you're working to solve a problem. And if you don't solve that problem, then your work and your time and your talent is a bit of a waste. So I think this is just the number one thing. And the second thing that you must learn is sensitivities. um, Sensitivities in terms of organizational sensitivities, people sensitivity, culture sensitivity. Those are important things to be aware of. So keep that in mind when you're designing.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. What are the challenges and opportunities that worked out for you, and what did not work out for you? Like in your own journey.
In my own journey, what worked out for me was just hard work. It's been a lot of hard work, and it's been a lot of uh, keeping at it. There are days that, yes, you do feel low and demotivated, and there are days that you're really happy and excited. All emotions should be taken into account, so give yourself a day off when you're feeling demotivated, and march on. Just keep at it, don't give up. That's the only thing that works. Like, if you want something, just every angle, everything that you can think of, do it, keep at it, and you'll get there. And what did not work for me was um, I don't think I can think of anything. I mean, there are certainly mistakes that I can say that, of course, everyone makes along the way, and I made my own set of mistakes. But I think that's just made me better and smarter and wiser in my journey. So I wouldn't say that there's anything that I would probably sort of take back, or anything that didn't work for me. Actually, just people. This is something that you all will sort of face, is that always work with good people, and you will get a sense, you will know. We're all human beings, we can all gauge. Your work becomes, I cannot even tell you how much, your work becomes 50 times better when you work with good people who like push you and motivate you. So I think the one thing that I learned very strongly is that it's very important to work with the right set of people. And if you don't think that they are the right set of fit for you, or the right set of people, step back and don't do it. Because your work will suffer, you will suffer, and the best results will not come out. So that's one thing that I think I'll recommend.
If I have to add one thing, I've certainly felt very guilty on the days like I don't even want to work on this. I am just not, my mind doesn't even work on this, and I feel guilty as to why am I feeling this. And
it's completely natural. It's completely natural, and I would say give yourself a bit of break. If your mind's not functioning or it's not working, divert your mind to doing something else. Read a book, go out for a walk, listen to music. And believe me, when you come back at it, you'll probably come back with a spark somewhere, because subconsciously, as designers, all of us are always thinking about it. Even though you're actively not, but subconsciously, you're always thinking as designers. This is like a special power that we have. And it is ours, and only ours. And I feel very happy and proud to say this. So you'll always have that in your head. Just divert yourself a little bit and then come back to it. Don't guilt trip. It doesn't help.
I totally agree. Moving on to the next question. What is that is expected out of a fresh design graduate by the industry today?
Okay, this is a this is an important one. So I'm going to deep dive a little bit here. The first thing that's expected out of a graduate is that do not make the mistake of approaching your companies or people that you want to do on non-professional platforms. So don't send DMs on Instagram, or don't send Facebook requests, etc. If you're going to approach something professionally, do it either via a professional platform or do it via mail, right? Email, there's always an email ID to get in touch with. Second thing is that always do your homework on the organization that you're going to get yourself into, right? Always know what they are about, what has their journey been, who are the key people in the company, especially what they have been doing in design or in the arena of design. So make sure you do your homework on it, and you know, right? The third thing is that this is an additional thing. It's slightly difficult to sort of arrive so early in your career into it, but if you do, it's amazing. So, if you already know what you want to solve for example, you followed the journey of an Apple, and you know that there's a design problem there, or there's something that you want to solve for, or for Airbnb, and I'm going to only talk about design driven companies. These are design driven companies. So if you know what you want to solve for, mention that in your email, like mention that in your cover letter along with your portfolio, right? This is the third thing. The fourth thing is that always share your portfolio along with your resume, and ideally try and do it in a PDF format with the best of your work. Not all your work, but like 10, 12 slide best of your work, and sort of give it your own thought process, like how do you approach design, a little note on how do you approach design. So that gives them a good insight on sort of who you are, right? These are a couple of things before you sort of enter. Once you enter the professional environment, then there are a whole bunch of things, but the most important from them is be on time and follow deadlines. Those are the only two things I can sort of tell you, that once you get into a professional setup, these are very important. Always be on time for everything and follow deadlines.
I totally agree, and these points are definitely beneficial for our students. So moving on to the last question, I want to ask you, how can someone be Saumya?
I want to answer that by saying that don't be Saumya. You have something that's very unique to you, just like I have something that's unique to me, and you will all have your own journeys, and you should be your own person. You can always look up to, I have my own design inspirations and my own sort of leaders that I look up to, and you can learn from their journey, but always be yourself. uh, Recognize your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, and just follow your instincts, and that's it. Don't be someone else.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering these questions. So moving on, I think we leave it on to the audience. Guys, y'all can put your questions on the chat box, and Saumya ma'am will be happy to answer them. So we have quite a bit of questions. So Raj Anikumar asks you that what's your process for breaking down a brief?
So I've very rarely come across good briefs, because it's an art in itself how to write a brief. Ideally, how I break down a brief is the brief answering the 5 important questions, which is what, when, who, why, how. So how may not always be in it, but if the brief has these 4 or 5 things, that's how I break down a brief. So what is it for? Why is it? When are you supposed to deliver? Who is it for? Most important thing is your audience. Who is it for? If it doesn't answer these couple of things, then it's very difficult to break down a brief. So that's how ideally I would break down a brief.
So the next question we have from Rohit is, what are the things an amateur designer must take into consideration when charging for commissions on a global scale, since assigning a certain monetary value to our time and talent spent on a commission often seems inadequate or profuse? Asking for a friend.
Okay, this is a very heavy one. Let me just reread this one. What are the things an amateur designer must take into consideration when charging for commissions? On a global scale, would this person sort of expand a bit on what do you mean by on a global scale? Assigning a certain monetary value to a time.
You could also unmute and ask the question.
Yes, Rohit here. So, am I audible? First of all,
Yes, Rohit. Hi.
All right, all right. So, since I am a freelancer, I have come across many customers overseas. So there's
Okay.
this, always
Okay.
ups and downs in the monetary value of my commissions.
Yeah.
It may be very expensive over here in INR,
Yeah.
but it may be quite dirt cheap in USDs.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the kind of problem that I keep facing, is how to make how to charge my commissions, is what I'm trying to say when I say global scale.
Okay, so Rohit, the thing here is that a lot of it depends on the scope of the work and the number of hours you're putting on it, right? So you can do a quick search online. There are various sort of sites and areas that support that. So for example, in the US, I'm not saying this is it, I'm just giving a hypothetical example. So for example, in the US, if a designer charges say $10 an hour for their work, and you're working on this project for 40 hours in a month, then you sort of do that and then see how much taxes or etc. or the transfer it's going to take, and that's how you come to a monetary value. And the same goes for India actually. So it becomes very transparent and clear if you do it on an hourly basis. The second way to sort of do this would be again, and how much stress are you taking on it, honestly. So sometimes with experienced designers, this is more the case where you're an experienced designer, and because of your experience, you can actually do the same amount of work in say shorter period of time. Something that someone might take 10 hours to do, an experienced designer may actually pull it off for 2 hours. But then you need to charge for your experience, right? And the way that you've arrived there. So then your amount sort of becomes higher. So in this case, I think you're asking me for an amateur designer. I would say that you go by an hourly rate, and then don't compare the currencies. So an hourly rate in India may be like 1,000 rupees an hour for the same work, but in US it might be $10, which there might be a difference or fluctuation in the currency. So don't compare the currencies. I hope that sort of answers.
Hi, I have a question. Rohit here again.
Hi.
So, Saumya, while you mentioned about things that we need to do on our portfolio, work, and presentation, I believe that your college days are also your golden years.
Yeah.
What are could you also share with our students about having some fun while not losing the goal towards building their career? So could you put some light on it, or maybe share a story from your college journey?
So like I said, I did go to college, but it was not a design college. So my journey has of course been slightly different to arriving where I am today in terms of design. But what I do remember learning in my journey was that I sort of observed a lot. Like I said, observation was extremely important for me, and listening was very important for me. and I did a lot of on-ground visits. So my favorite thing on weekends used to be, I used to go to like furniture makers, and not the ones which are very established, but you know, carpenters की दुकानें होती हैं, छोटी छोटी दुकानें जो होती हैं. So I made friends with carpenters, and I made friends with you know, tiling people, and I have a lot of these set of very cool skill labor that I have come to know through the years. And in my off time, on my off days, I used to go to these shops, and I used to sit with them, and I used to see them make whatever that they were making. And I used to do this for various, like for pottery, potters, for tile makers, for carpenters, for polish people, how they polish, what are the various materials they use in their polish. I used to find out in my area if there are any craftsmen. So I used to go and sort of go to their shop and sit and see how the craft is made. So this was one of my favorite things to do, you know, during 4 years. And you know, honestly, you only have the time to do this when you're in college. You really don't have the time. You really are very hard pressed for time when you get into the professional environment. So this is one thing that you must explore in college. And the second thing I used to do was I used to window, which I still do. I really enjoy window shopping. I really like window shopping. So you should do a lot of window shopping. You know, look at displays, look at these malls, markets, any kind of like shop displays, etc. Just really enjoy walking around, and you know, walking around in markets also as well. Actually, a lot of markets, second-hand furniture markets. But this is something which was a lot of interest to me. So there are various design disciplines, and you know, a lot of you may have different interests, but I think what is to do is to get out there and see as much as you can. And if you can chill with some of these people who make things, it's a lot of fun, I can tell you. They are a class apart, and it's very enjoyable and a very humbling experience to actually be around such skilled people. And you will be amazed to see how much talent there is in India. It's insane. So that's one thing I used to do a lot during my college days, and I do manage to still do this once in a while. Of course, not during this time in the last couple of months, but this is something I would recommend.
Yeah, we have another question from Tanvi Joshi. So since you mentioned that a PDF format for portfolio can be ideal, I have usually seen industrial designers' portfolio in that format. But since I'm a UX student, can you elaborate on how I could translate and concise my portfolio into a PDF format, since the research part of it is much heavier in the UX?
So what I would recommend is that, you know, you can hyperlink in your portfolio. So if you want someone to experience your UX UI design, or you want someone to experience it, what you can do is do like a little write up on what that is and hyperlink it, and then have an image. So when somebody like me, if you're sending it to someone like me, I can always click on the hyperlink and see the project for myself, or experience it myself, or see what part of it is usually about. You know, the portfolio is primarily to let your future employer or the person you want to collaborate with, whoever you're sending it to, the primary reason for sharing it is ideally to understand how you think as a designer, right? The kind of thinking that's gone into your work, and also to see your visual imagery, your style, essentially. Because by the end of the 4th year, you as a designer most certainly have hung on to some style of your own. You do manage to develop something which you sort of solidify over a period of time. And once you've solidified your own style as a designer, then many designers then play around with it to see how they can change and not be trapped in doing the one thing, right? So that's another thing that designers tend to do. So it's primarily to see this. So this is why a PDF is actually the cleanest and the easiest and the most clickable, because it's right there in the mail. All you have to do is click open and see it. So it becomes very easy for anybody to do that, which is why I'm recommending it.
So another question we have from Manav Bhatt is how we can enhance our creativity.
Wow. How can you enhance your creativity? That's I mean, there's a lot you can do there. Like I said, hang out with non-designers. Extend it. It does open up your mind to a lot of things. For example, I think this happened. It's happened to us a number of times in our journey. We designed something in-house at OXT, and all of us thought, because all of us were designers, and we thought, oh, how exciting! We've done such an amazing job with it. It's so great, right? And then when we took it to sort of people who were non-designers, like business people, operations people, many other kinds of teams that are there, everyone was like, but how do you use this? But how do you do this? Where do you start on it? Like, but these colors I don't understand. So the thing is that you can do how much, like I said, you can be in your silo and you can be a designer, you can do it. But if you don't actually interact with people through the journey or through the process of that you're designing, you will only end up doing it for yourself, which is great if you're doing it for yourself in the first place, but mostly you're not. So I think that's one way to expand your creativity. Second way to expand your creativity is challenge yourself on money and time. I will do this project in 1 hour and I will see the input, and I'll do the same project. I will take 10 hours to see the input. I will do this project in 100 rupees and I will do this project in 1000 rupees. It really opens up your mind to being how creative you can get when you're constricted and you have little, and how creativity really, it's very difficult. It comes to you when you have so much in your hand, like you have a lot of money and you have a lot of time. So challenge yourself. And 3, see a lot of trend, read a lot, see things. For example, a lot of you might be Netflixing and Amazon priming, etc. right now, right? So whenever you're watching shows or movies, don't concentrate just on the hero heroine, but concentrate on the set design, concentrate on the color palette, right? Concentrate on lighting design. There are so many things that happen in content when you're watching. That's one way to expand your creativity and be like, wow, what someone could do this with a scene. That may require you to watch a show 3-4 times, but yeah, that's another really cool way of sort of doing that. And 3 and 4 is observe. Just be observant of things around you.
Akash Gupta asks, since you said that always approach industries in a professional way, how about giving the company a solution that you find fault in their design rather than just giving a resume with a portfolio? With the design solution, they may see the keen interest to work under them.
Yes. Why not? I say go for it. Like if you think that there is a design gap or there is a problem, I would say go for it, which is why I said that's a value add that you can bring or you can think of. But I would say approach it with a lot of respect, because companies or people put a lot of time, effort and energy in building what they are building. So tomorrow if you have to go and tell PepsiCo, or you have to tell Coca-Cola, or you have to tell Tatas or Birlas, or anybody for that matter, that this is something wrong, by all means do it, but do it in a respectful way. Do it in a way where you don't say, oh, you've done wrong, but this is what I can add value to. I see this gap and I would like to work on this and sort of give you a solution, and then link it to your work and your portfolio. And that would be a very holistic way to approach a company.
Yes, that definitely does help. So I want to ask you a personal question. Can you share a few platforms that we can take freelance projects from?
few platforms. I can share this separately. I'll share this separately with you guys in a day or so.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Rohit asks again, not a design related question. I couldn't help but notice that your last name is the reverse of your first. So would you like to share the interesting story behind this anagram?
So I was very young. I'll share this. I was very young. I think 10 or 12, and I asked my father that why do I have a surname? So my dad tried to explain it to me, and I kept asking him, and I said, people need to address me by a name, and you've given me a name. And I personally thought that people slot you when they hear about your last name. And when I was very young, I decided to give myself a name. So I said, I'm going to use this as my surname. And I told my dad, are you cool with it? And he's like, yeah, I'm cool with it. He's like, are you happy about it? And I said, yeah, I'm very happy. So yeah, and that's just how it happened.
That's so
And it's stuck, and it's I like it.
So I think we are in the end. So I would like to thank you, Saumya ma'am, for this amazing session and helping us understand our designeering journey. And we really look forward to incorporating your suggestions and making these 4 years worth remembering. I really enjoyed your session.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed interacting with all of you. I hope it has been helpful. And I'd like to congratulate all of you because this is a student-run forum and you guys are doing it by yourself. So there is a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in all of you, and that's really good to see. And keep at it. Wish you guys all the best for your 4 years, and for those who are maybe ahead and stepping into the real world. All the best to all of you guys. And just a quick note that the time that we are going through today, it's very unique. And I feel like as designers, we are in such amazing position to do a lot, which I don't think any other sort of profession might be. So make the most of it. Don't let it get you down. And yeah, and don't feel guilty about taking a cheat day.
Thank you again, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohit.
Thank you, Saumya. Thank you for joining us.